So, let's talk real quick about a thing that's been cropping up. Cell phone bans. Yeah, sure. You're a teacher and phones make it hard for kids to concentrate, right? Los Angeles just enacted a cell phone ban that starts this spring, and New York City has plans to do the same. The chancellor of New York City schools, David Banks, said, "They're not just a distraction. Kids are fully addicted now to phones." And that makes my ears perk up. Addicted is a strong word. It was used to describe me and my little Nintendo Entertainment System. I was 10, and let's not argue about addiction to various technologies. Sure, it can happen, but it's pretty rare. Usually, almost all of us can put down that controller. There's just nothing more interesting going on. And banning cell phones to make students focus more on boring, seemingly pointless school assignments won't really help anything. Now, the Innovation Playlist, which spun off from the book What School Could Be by Ted Dintersmith, has some very interesting ideas about making school more meaningful. You don't have to bury the cell phones. You just need to incorporate real-world challenges into the assignments. Simply put, schools need to be meaningful. It has to have a purpose and not a, "Oh, trust me, one day this will all pay off," sort of jump through these arbitrary hoops sort of purpose. It has to be an actual, let's look at a real problem and interact with the world around us. And if we can do that, if we can actually find a practical way to connect the students to their world, the phones aren't an obstacle anymore. Now they're just a tool. The best part is, as a teacher, you don't have to come up with all the answers here. The students can direct their own learning with their own interests. They can shadow professionals at workplaces. They can conduct interviews. They can set up their own internships. They can identify problems in the world around them and work together towards solutions. Which all sounds really good, in theory. This innovation playlist was put together in 2020, and from what I could hunt down, hasn't had a whole lot of time and opportunity to be put into practical use. Now, it's clearly apparent there are some very well-funded schools that are doing very good things with this playlist, but we all already knew that if we invested more in education, we could get better results. What I have been wrestling with all week is how scared I have felt watching that documentary, reading this book, flipping through these ideas about how to create a school that will challenge students to solve problems and engage them. It all sounds so good and is presented as such a simple win. And that makes me so nervous my teeth start to grind. Education has been trying to connect with kids and make the curriculum meaningful for, well, forever. Everything being said here about student-directed and discovery-based learning is pretty close to what was said about whole language reading instruction back in the 90s. And that just left a lot of kids in California who couldn't read very well. This playlist is a lot of encouragement and a lot of lofty goals to achieve without much clear explanation of the pitfalls, the problems, and the shortcomings. What happens when students are thrown into a college system that ranks their graduates, where spots are competed for, and they will be labeled, evaluated, and left behind if they can't sit down and say, spit out a slideshow video that excitedly extols a program they don't necessarily understand or believe in? Because the more an educational system is trying to prepare students for life after school, the more it has to be realistic about how the society is constructed out there in the real world. very much like the student-directed, project-based exploratory learning described here. This seems like a very good way to get kids engaged in their own education, and a very good way to leave a kid feeling lost and ignored the moment they have to sit, listen, and take notes in a 200-student lecture hall for a freshman year physics lesson in college. This feels like training a bunch of creative, validated, and self-directed ballerinas, and then sending them off to war. And that scares me.